already giving up an evening to listen, so I'm going to get going. We've muted everybody only because of like interference on the line, but if you want to ask a question or contribute in some way, then please just unmute yourselves and just go for it. It's, you know, we're not a lot of people, which is good because it means that we can kind of have more of a conversation than anything else. If people feel that they could turn on their cameras, that would be really nice, because it's just much nicer for me to be able to see people's faces and see who I'm talking to. But obviously if your camera isn't working or whatever, then don't worry, that's fine. Okay, so welcome everybody. I think I know everybody really, but just in case I don't, just a quick introduction about me. So I'm Rachel. I'm a primary school teacher, and I've worked in primary schools for about 15 years. And the last 7 or 8 years of that, I specialise in children with special educational needs. So I spend quite a lot of my time working with families and trying to support children with additional needs, both in school and at home. And this time of year, I often spend quite a lot of time working with families who are worried about the transition back to school, or their kids are maybe showing that they're not that happy with having to go back to school and have that change of schedule and routine and all the rest of it. I normally spend the first few weeks of term kind of doing quite a bit of work with teachers and with parents on that. And I was kind of talking to people over the summer and thinking about it myself. And obviously this transition back to school this September is just absolutely huge for all of us. Going back to school after almost kind of 6 months of, I think it's the most disruptive period in UK history of schooling. Even in the war, schools didn't shut. So it's been seriously huge for us all. As some of your kids might have gone back to school a little bit in the summer term, they might have had a few weeks, they might have had a few days. Some of them had nothing. Whatever they got in the summer term, it was not likely to look like regular school anyway. And I think, so, you know, this period of time is likely to be a really big and quite difficult transition for our children, and also I think for us as the parents of primary age children. So I thought it would be helpful to put together some of the common kind of questions that I get and concerns that I get asked every year, and then follow up with some practical suggestions and tips and things like that that I know kind of work. So I'm going to go through the presentation or whatever, and then we can do questions and answers at the end, but also feel free to just stop and ask questions all the way through. That's fine, just give me a wave. It's aimed really at primary school age, by the way. I'm kind of doing 5 to 11. Some of it will be relevant to older children. I've got one going into year 7 myself, so I'm kind of that way inclined a bit more these days. And some of it will be helpful for your nursery age kids, but I'm not really doing kind of babies tonight. And it's not also really aimed at children with very specific additional needs, although obviously a lot of what I say here would be relevant to them as well. But that's just to note, that's a kind of separate thing that I'm happy to talk about at another time should people want. Please don't be embarrassed to ask a question. I can absolutely guarantee you I will have heard it before, or I'll have asked it myself. So either way, we're covered. Okay, so this is next slide, please. Is that working? Can everyone see? The next one? Yeah. No, the next one. There you go. Right. So this is, I just absolutely love this cartoon. And the quote, "Our job is to prepare our children for the road, not prepare the road for our children," is written by, she's Jewish actually, an absolutely inspirational American child psychologist called Dr. Wendy Mogul. I'm recommending her book at the end of this. In fact, I'm recommending all her books. But she's a really, I just think that she's absolutely fantastic. She says everything that I kind of agree with, and I really like this quote. And I kind of want to start by just stating the obvious, which is that our kids are much more resilient than we generally give them credit for. And that's not a negative comment about our parenting. It's just a truth that the thing that we all as parents want, really above everything else, is just for our kids to be happy and content and safe. And we want the road to be smooth for them. Of course we do. And so naturally, we kind of worry instantly if there's something coming along the road that we think might interfere with that. And our natural instinct is just to protect them, to rush out into the road and get rid of whatever it is that we're not happy about. And of course, that's not possible in life, unfortunately. All we can actually do is to try and give the kids the tools that they're going to need to be able to meet those bumps that are surely going to come along the way. And I think, especially today, and even since I started teaching 15 years ago, parents just seem to face this increasingly impossible challenge. We're kind of expected to just be, these perfect parents with very challenging and absorbing careers, or if we're stay-at-home parents, to be creating these kind of wholesome, creative, wonderful home environments. We're expected to have all the latest gadgets and gizmos and to produce, everything. Well-educated, ambitious, technologically literate children who can speak Mandarin and play several instruments and excel at sports and be socially and emotionally robust enough to cope in our kind of fast-paced, changing society. I mean, just saying it, I feel overwhelmed. And many of the parents I speak to feel overwhelmed. And then on top of all of that, this year we had a coronavirus crisis. Who knew where that just came from? All of a sudden, it's like, wow, bam, here we are. And the lockdown. And we were kind of, faced with this unthinkable task of having to homeschool. Most of us were still working at the same time, by the way, and had maybe more than one or several children at home. And we were in that position for several months. When you say it now, you were just kind of like, what? I mean, it was just so nuts. So, of course, during lockdown, many of us, myself included, reverted to a very understandable what will work today style of parenting. So bedtimes may be stretched to very, very late. Wake-up times were arbitrary. Meals were sometimes, I think, eaten together as a family, possibly for the first time ever during the week. Or maybe you actually found you never had time to sit down and have a family meal at all because such were the demands of work and family being placed on you. And in general, it's just been a time of ever-shifting boundaries and change, which is really, really hard for young children to comprehend. And now we're back to school, and we're back to regular wake-ups and early bedtimes and after-school clubs and homework and uniform. And, I'm definitely not the only one thinking like, how is that going to work? So next slide, please. Here's how I'm going to recommend it's going to work. So I thought about my own lockdown experience. I thought about other people's lockdown experiences. I thought about all the things that I tell parents this time of year anyway, every year. And this is what I've come up with. Obviously, I love a bit of alliteration. And I think it boils down to routine, responsibility, and ritual, which is my favourite. We're going to save that for the end. That's the best bit. We're going to start with the routine, the mundane, but very important. Any questions, by the way? I actually can't really see everyone. If you have a question, just write in the chat and Joel will pass it along. Everyone good? Okay, I'm going to keep going then. Okay, so I'm going to start with why is a routine important at school, actually, to give you some context about why a routine at home is so important. So routines are absolutely vital to school life because they give kids the ability to predict what's going to happen next. So they're repetitive. The same consequence follows the same sequence of events every day. And it takes away the worry that children have about what might happen. So they already know that maths follows assembly. And even though maybe they hate that maths lesson, it's okay. It's not so bad because they also know that after maths, it's playtime. And they get to go outside and have a run around in their snack and moan to their friends about how awful the maths lesson was. When children are able to predict what's happening next, they feel much more secure and prepared for what's coming. And all the research really clearly shows that those children who are familiar with the classroom routines, who are able to follow those classroom routines are much more likely to be engaged and attentive and learn new knowledge. So it affects their learning as well. How does this translate to home? So over the past few months, my experience of other households as well as my own has been that there's been very little predictable routine in place, or it's been just a completely different routine to normal term time. Even if you had the most wonderful schedule of homeschooling all set up, it was completely different to how it would have been in school, obviously. And now that we're going back, hopefully, to some kind of normality, we need to adjust that accordingly. And we're going to have to kind of find a way to negotiate a much more highly scheduled kind of routine-based structure that most of us associate with term time. Okay, next slide, please. So the 3 big crunch points. These 3 things before school, so getting up in the morning, homework, and bedtime, are without fail the 3 issues that come up when I talk to parents at this time of year, and indeed all the way through the year, always. I don't know if any of those ring a bell for any of you. I'm sure they do. Sometimes it will just be one of those times that's a tricky period of time for your family. Sometimes it's all 3. However it is, during lockdown, it's likely that all of those things looked very different to how they look now. So I'm going to start with homework. I think children are going to find having to do homework again quite difficult. The blurred lines, which kind of encapsulated homeschooling, so that blurry line between home and school, was very hard for our kids to comprehend, let alone us as adults trying to facilitate it. But our kids are going to have to get back to that concept of we work at school and we do a little bit extra at home. Some kids are going to adjust to that easier than others. But if you think your child is going to find this hard, maybe because they struggled with homework in the past, or because they have found homeschooling, quite challenging to engage with in actual fact. Oh, that's a good question. Thanks, Emma. I'm going to come to that in a minute. There are a few things that you can do to help. So first of all, I know it sounds really obvious, but lots of people just don't think about it, so I'm just going to say it. Find a day and a time when the main chunk of the weekly homework gets done. So this is why I'm saying it applies more to primary, because in secondary you're going to get homework every day and it's a slightly different thing. But in primary, normally you're not getting little bits of homework every day other than your spelling and your times table. You're going to get your English and maybe your maths every week, or whatever it is, your topic. And you need to find a time when it's going to get done. So I'm going to give an example of my house because it's just an easy example to give you. After school on a Friday, everybody does their homework, right? All 3 kids. And it's non-negotiable. That's the routine. Everyone comes home and does their homework, and we don't have to spend the rest of the weekend agitating about. And because they know it's a routine, there's less argument about it, because yes, it's super annoying every Friday afternoon. Oh, I don't want to do my homework. But also, we know that within an hour, it's gone again because we've done the homework and we've moved on. Finish. Every week, it's the same thing. It comes, but it goes again. If Friday afternoon doesn't work for you, and of course it might not, that's not saying do it on a Friday afternoon. Just find a time that's going to work for you, but make it sacrosanct. I really try never to change the Friday afternoon thing, and I can get a little bit anally retentive about it, admittedly, but that's because I find that if I keep that routine, there's no drama with it. It just happens. I also recommend for kids in Key Stage 2, they should be doing their homework in their bedrooms, at a table or at a desk. If you don't have space for that, absolutely fine. Find a space in your house that is the homework area. If they're just doing it kind of on the floor in the living room, again, it's just going to become less of a routine and more of a, this is something I'm kind of choosing to do right now. Like maybe I would choose to do a puzzle. I'm going to choose to do my homework. I'm going to choose to do it on the floor. I'm going to choose to do it with this huge fat marker that I know my teacher would never let me normally use. No. Homework gets done at the homework table. Get them a special pencil case just for homework, a folder just for homework, and a clock. You show them that you're trusting them to do it independently. And you give them a time. You've got 20 minutes. If it's not done in 20 minutes or whatever your teacher recommends, that's it, finished. You're taking it into school anyway, and your teacher is going to deal with it for you. Because homework isn't really meant to be your battle, it's meant to be your teacher's battle. So if you find that you're spending an awful lot of time arguing about it, just take your voice out of it and hand that back to your class teacher to manage. Try to be matter of fact about it. We've all been there where they don't want to do the homework and it looks like a really pointless piece of homework anyway, and we're thinking, why bother? Like, this is not purposeful and it's boring, and like, let's just, you're right, it's really annoying, we've all done it. But that's not the point of primary school homework. The point of primary school homework is starting to teach children self-discipline, how to do time management, how to deal with boredom or challenge when they'd rather be playing. It's about not removing the bump in the road, but helping them step over it calmly. Because as an adult, or even in secondary school, that's life, right? Sometimes you don't have a good teacher. Sometimes you have a job where some of it's really boring, but you can't say to your boss, oh, I can't be bothered to fill in that report, I just won't bother. You have to just crack on and do it. So already, even though they're very little, our children, we're sowing those seeds to try and build that resilience and that independence. Any questions? I realise I'm just like chucking a lot of information at you, but on Zoom it's just kind of really hard to do it any other way. So, marvellous. Hold on. Natalia has what was Natalia's question? Oh, okay, fabulous. Emma, I'm going to get to your question once I've done this.
So, am I okay to ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we've got quite a lot of battles with homework normally. And there's definitely a refusal to even do anything unless I sit next to her and help. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure. Normally there's, as I said, battles, and that's every week. So I don't really know how to encourage her to be a bit more independent when it comes to, she's definitely capable. But
the older one, can I just ask, is that the older one or the younger one?
The older one. Yeah, the older one. Oh yeah, the younger one's fine. No.
Okay. So I think the thing to do, one of the things to try is to try in some way to show her that you think she's ready to do this on her own. Because what happens is that, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later as well, kids are very good at getting into a very negative cycle of thinking about a particular issue. And homework, for whatever reason, tends to be a good place for that. They just get very anxious about it, and it just becomes this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. If you kind of say to her, right, you're a year 4 kid now, like you're a big girl, homework is going to be done wherever that space is going to be, in her bedroom ideally, but not everyone has space for that, so maybe it's at the dining room table or whatever it is. This is going to be your special pencil pot, and here is a clock. So start gradually. I'm going to start you off, and I'm going to come back in 15 minutes or even 10 minutes and see how you're getting on. And I'm just going to be really proud of you if you can actually even just try one of those questions. So we're not looking for you can do the question. Can you just try it? We're going to change the language. Because to be quite honest with you, in terms of actual learning, primary school homework has no benefit on learning whatsoever. I mean, there's been decades of research on that. It doesn't help the kids learning. It's other skills we're teaching them. It's this other stuff, the independence, the anxiety, and how to manage that. So we want to rephrase our language around that. So I'll just be really impressed if you can try these 2 questions. I'm going to come back in 10 minutes. The alarm's going to go off. I'm going to have a look, and then we're going to do another 2 questions, and then we're just going to stop. You don't need to finish it all. And I would make it very clear to your child's teacher quite early on that homework is a battle and it's an anxiety for your child. This is the strategy you're going to be trying. So please, they shouldn't expect that everything's going to be finished at the beginning, because the most important thing is that you want her to be doing it independently, so she might get less done. Most teachers are going to be like, yeah, that's fine, because that's a good strategy and that's going to help with classroom management as well. And when you give her a time, we're going to do this for 20 minutes and then stop, just stop, even if you really haven't got anything done, because she has to learn to trust that you mean that, and you're not actually then going to say, oh, you haven't done enough, we better do another 20 minutes. She has to learn the routine, as it were. You said 20 minutes, and 20 minutes it is. On the other hand, if she can try 2 or 3 questions in 20 minutes, then there might be a little reward. I'm all for rewards, call it what you will, bribery, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Kids would respond really, really well to it. Whatever your kid is into, that's fantastic. You're going to get a sticker, you're going to get a biscuit, you're going to get whatever it is. Because I'm really proud that you managed to achieve that. Okay, and then slowly you can build up that tolerance for it all.
Thank you.
Tiny, tiny steps is what I'm saying here. Okay, fantastic. Right, I'm going to just go through school. I'm going to go through morning and bedtime dramas, and then I'm going to go to Emma's question. Okay. Right, so why are visuals your friend? If your child is struggling to adapt to a new term time routine, I highly recommend using visual aids. So obviously, traditionally, these have been seen as a tool for kids with communication problems or other additional needs, but I've been recommending visual aids to all the parents I work with for years, and I also use them myself. Because children tend to respond really well to things that they see. It's much less abstract for them. It's easier for them to understand. As I'm sure everyone will know, kids are very good at tuning out when we're talking to them if they're not interested. You can be nagging away for half an hour and your child stopped listening 10 seconds into that tirade. They're just not hearing it. But a visual schedule on your fridge or a have you remembered list on your front door is not so easily screened out. It's right there. It's there all the time. The other great thing about a chart or a visual schedule is you can't argue with it. There's no point in shouting at the chart. The chart doesn't care. It's not going to engage. It's an inanimate object, and kids know that. So I really recommend that rather than doing what I have done countless times, which is, having the shouting match at the front door at like 8:23 because you've asked them to prepare their school bag, make sure they've got their water bottle, is it PE day, have they got their coat and shoes on, and now you've seen they haven't done any of that because they were actually just reading on their bed or whatever it was that they were doing. You reference the chart in advance. They come down to breakfast and you say, Annie, have you checked your going to school chart this morning? Make sure you check it before breakfast now. It just takes your voice out of the equation and it gives them more responsibility for taking control of their life. And we're going to come to responsibility more in a bit. And even a young child can respond well. An older child, you might not need all the pictures. They can just write it down themselves. A younger child, it might just be pictures. Even a 5 or 6 year old can be responsible for getting their water bottle and putting it in their bag, getting their apple from the fridge and putting it in their bag, making sure their coat is ready next to their shoes the night before or whatever it is. In terms of morning routines, I know it's going to sound a bit old-fashioned and silly. I really recommend getting children in Key Stage 2 an alarm clock. Not like an Alexa or a phone or a piece of technology. And I'm sure that some people here are now rolling their eyes at my Luddite nature, but just an old-fashioned alarm clock that you press when it goes off for the mornings. First of all, kids love alarm clocks. Not quite sure why, but they just do. I think it's something fun about, pressing the thing. And it shows the children, again, that you trust them to get themselves up and to get themselves out of bed and ready for the day. It takes your voice out of it again. If you have kids who are moody in the morning, and we all do, and I'm terrible in the morning myself, The last thing you want is your mum coming through the door, morning, time to get up, make sure you get dressed, have you done that thing, have you got your PE kit, blah, 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 and they're just lying there thinking, absolutely no way, sorry, see you next time. But an alarm clock, it goes off, it gives them a little bit of space to think, okay, the alarm clock's gone off, I need to get up now. I'm not quite sure why it works so well, but it really does work very well. I've had endless parents telling me it's been successful, and I normally recommend to parents that they get an alarm clock as a sort of back to school present for kids in year 3 and year 4. And you can teach them about the snooze button. They get 5 minutes to lie in bed, and then they have to just get up, get dressed, come downstairs. Bedtime. So in lockdown, you might very well have had a very fluid approach to bedtime, and that's fine, because whatever worked. But school is not fluid at all. The day starts really early. There's a lot of school admin that has to be fitted in at home each day. There's trip letters, and there's PE kits to be remembered, and there's lunches to be made, and snacks to be whatever, homework. It's a busy time. So I really think it's important that children go to bed in good time, and that potentially means a bit earlier than you might imagine. In my experience, and I know it sounds a bit old-fashioned, but I really think that a fairly early bedtime in term time has a lot of positives for everyone in the family. And I'm also saying that as a teacher who has watched, as it rolls on to kind of 2:30, and you can literally see the kids, especially the younger ones, but even the older ones, drooping. They are falling asleep in their chairs by the end of the school day, because we ask a lot of them in school. It's boom, boom, boom the whole day. And then they come home, and often there's an after school club, or there's whatever else it is. They need rest time, and they need more of it than often we think that they do. So firstly, children are growing, the school day is arduous, and especially this term where everything is so different, they're going to be really tired when they get back home. They need to go to bed early. Secondly, an early bedtime gives you, the adult, time to be child-free. That's really important. And whatever it is that you're choosing to do in that time, it might be just the school admin that's needed to be done. I don't know, going to the gym, watching box sets on TV, having dinner. Whatever it is, you need time to do it. And you need time without the kids to do that. And thirdly, and kind of harking back to what we were talking about before, I think a regular timely bedtime teaches children self-discipline, which is a really crucial skill that's needed in school. So the way I normally suggest to parents that they do it is that you just agree a bedtime with your children in advance, however that's going to look, and it's going to look different to all of you because everyone's thresholds and feelings about that are different, and then just stick to it. Just stick to it, come what may. So to use my own house as an embarrassing example, we're like totally old-fashioned and terribly regimented, and from kind of 7:30 8, everybody is upstairs, and that ranges from my 11-month-old to my 11-year-olds. Little kids are asleep, bigger ones are in their bedrooms hanging out, whatever that might look like. They're reading, they're doing their magazines, they're listening to music, doesn't matter, it's fine. But downstairs is now designated adult time, with very, very few exceptions. And I think it's just about sticking to that consistently. It might be that 9 o'clock you think is fine, and that's going to be your adult designated time. That's also fine. Doesn't really matter as long as you agree that time with your child, so there's not going to be any surprises. And every day, that's how it is. And then weekends you can make a little bit different, because it's the weekend and it's Shabbat, or it's, whatever, and that can be your kind of special, little bit different time. If you're finding that the bath time, pyjama, toothbrushing thing in your younger kids is a bit of a battle, make a chart. Just make another chart. You can't have too many charts in your house, frankly. Have another chart on their bedroom wall, and kids love ticking things off a list. Little ones might enjoy putting a sticker on there, that kind of thing. for older children, get them to actually write down the list. What is it that they think they need to do with you to make the end of the day calm? And they tick it off. If things are really bad, make that as part of a reward scheme. But 9 times out of 10, just ticking things off the chart is going to help make it smoother anyway. I think for this term, you might find, I think we all might find, that we need charts for the beginning of the day, for the end of the day. We need charts all over the shop as our kids adjust to the new routines and the lack of flexibility that they've been used to over the last few months. So don't forget, at school, we spend a long time teaching the new routines at the beginning of every new year. The whole first 2 weeks is pretty much just doing that. And even after that, you're going to have refresher sessions every day. We invest time in it at school because it pays off. Once the kids know what's expected, behaviour improves, well-being is better, anxiety is lessened, there are fewer breakouts in terms of behaviour or arguments. You have a more peaceful, more in control classroom environment, and you absolutely will have that at home too. You know, if you can follow it through. So it's worth adapting and taking the time to make it work for you. Okay, right. Any questions? Like give me a wave or just unmute yourselves or whatever it is. Everyone's good? Okay, amazing. Gonna plow on. Okay, screen time. I didn't really want to talk about screen time, but everyone was like, you have to talk about screen time if you're talking about transitions back to term time. So here it is. Okay, so I think screen time is the big green monster of 21st century parenting, and without a doubt, it's one of the most divisive topics of conversation among parents, among parenting experts, among professionals, among teachers. No one can agree what is a good amount of screen time. No one can agree how best to manage that. No one really knows because we just haven't had enough time to have any evidence of how screen time really affects our children. In the UK, there is no definitive guideline for what is appropriate amounts of screen time for different ages. There is in America, but there isn't here. And I think you have to decide what's right for you as a family. So if you're a family where you're not really into screen time yourselves, you and your husband or you and your partner or whoever it is don't really play video games or you're not really into all of that, you're likely to have just less screen time as a family. If you're really into it, you're going to have more. All of that's fine. It's just got to be managed. And I think one of the big transitions we're facing is that during the lockdown, all of our children watched a vast amount more screen time, pretty much generally across the board, than they would have done. Because there was no option. If you had to have a work meeting on Zoom and you also had 3 kids in your house, the TV or the Xbox or whatever it was had to be the nanny. I mean, it just was what it was. And no, I mean, that's just what it was. But now we're back to normality, and I think screen time needs to be moderated again. I mean, most parents that I speak to will attest to the kind of screen withdrawal rage thing that happens when you try and turn it off, whatever it is. And there has been a lot of research to show kind of how addictive some screen time can be and how quickly that can become addictive. But I think it's all manageable as long as it's managed by us, the adults. And it's about teaching self-discipline. It's about helping the kids to manage it themselves. So to just quickly go through these kind of top tips, I would say, especially for little kids, try and make bedrooms screen free. Some of you are probably thinking, oh my God, why would I ever have a screen in a bedroom anyway? But lots of kids do have screens in their bedrooms. I really would recommend getting rid of them during term time anyway, especially for smaller ones. For older ones, it's a different story. And you have to decide with your teenager, you know, how that's going to look like. It's just a different conversation, I think, to have. But for the younger ones, you know, they maybe listen to music on their iPad, but playing games, watching TV, try and take it out of the bedroom. have your off-limit screen time. Or if you have very little screen time, you might just have your on-limit screen time. You know, you can only watch half an hour before bed every day or whatever it is. But if you're freer with it, and that's fine, find the times when there's no negotiation, nobody watches TV. Might be during meal times, might be for an hour before bed, might be before school. I highly recommend not having any screen time before school, but it's, again, up to you. Try and make screen time maybe more of a family event when you can. So yes, screen time is amazing as childcare, and I use it all the time myself, but also it can be nice to just sit down with our children and either play a game with them, or watch something together. And it doesn't have to be something that we'll both enjoy. It can be Peppa Pig that only they'll enjoy, but that's fine because it's for them, really. That's time to spend with them. I wasn't sure whether to put in this one, be a role model. It sounds a bit preachy. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you eat every meal in front of the TV, you watch TV in bed all night, you're constantly playing Candy Crush on your telephone in front of your kids like 20 hours a day, it's just going to be harder to tell your children not to do those things, because quite rightly they'll say, well, but you're doing it. So whilst there is flexibility because you're the adult and they're the child, kind of be mindful of your own screen time when you're thinking about what's suitable for your children's screen time. And then finally, just make sure that your kids get some control so that they can start to make their own choices and manage that independently. They can either watch TV or play on an iPad, or they can watch this or they can watch this. Just remember that everything, though, on a screen adds up to daily total screen time, and it can add up really, really fast, especially once they're doing homework on the computer. So just try and keep an eye on it, so that they have time for other things as well. Okay, responsibility. So we've done routine, and now we're moving to responsibility. Any questions? Routine was my biggest one, so hopefully there's less information to throw at your faces now. Okay, so one of the things that certainly characterised my own lockdown experience, and from talking to lots of other people, this was similar for them, was that the kids were much more involved in running the household. It was a bit of a necessity, right? If your cleaner wasn't coming anymore, it was just really important that your children helped to keep everything clean and tidy. If you were trying to run your own business from home and homeschool your two children and look after your parents and do this, that and the other, kids needed to just help out more. They needed to help lay the table or load the dishwasher or whatever it was. And prior to lockdown, I think often I certainly felt it was just quicker and easier to do most of it myself. But of course, children need responsibility in order to develop life skills. And on a much more basic level, they need responsibility to be able to cope at school. So a really obvious example for that is lunch. So I get time and time again, I'm asked, my child is terribly, terribly anxious about lunch. Maybe they have sensory processing disorder. Can we refer them? And when I talk to the kids, quite often the source of the anxiety is actually much smaller. It's just that they have not been taught how to do all the things that they need to take responsibility for in the lunch hall. So they haven't been taught how to use a knife and fork properly. They haven't been taught how to pour their own water from a jug. They haven't been taught how to help themselves from a big platter of food, or maybe to help a friend to a big platter from a big platter of food, put the food there. And now they're being asked to do it with very little, if any, adult support at school. And it's really scary for them. And then that, as they get older, that kind of keeps going. So they go on residentials, and they're really anxious about going on residentials. And it turns out it's because they've never made their bed, or they've never put a duvet in a duvet cover, or they haven't, loaded, unloaded a dishwasher, and actually on the residential, they're going to be asked to do that. So all of these small, tiny things add up. They're big things for our children. And at school, we expect our children to take a lot of responsibility for themselves, and possibly more than we give them at home. So I think now is just a good opportunity to think about ways that we can give our kids more responsibility. And we've kind of talked about a couple of those already, because, just giving your child an alarm clock and saying, you can get yourself up now, is giving them responsibility. giving them a homework desk and saying you're old enough to do this on your own now is giving them responsibility. However you want to do it. You might have a chore list and everyone does that. You might just expect them to pitch in with whatever you ask them to do. You know, I'm not advocating kind of getting them to wash all the windows after school every Wednesday, but within reason, the more responsibility you can give them, the more resilience you're helping them build, which is going to directly tie in to their experience at school. For younger children, a key thing is being able to dress themselves. Can they put on their shoes? Can they do up their buttons? Can they do up a zip? Spend time teaching them how to do these things. It might take months, it might take all year, that's okay. Just feeling that they're learning it is going to help them feel more empowered. The other key thing I think is gratitude. And gratitude is all about, for me, the well-being of our children. I think we're all a bit worried about how they're going to what our children's kind of mental health and well-being is going to be like, going back into a school that's maybe going to look quite different to how they expect it. It's got the one-way system now, it's got the bubbles, it's got, you know, there's all sorts of different things going on. There's a lot of unknown as well. So actually, Emma, I forgot to come to your question, I've just remembered it now. Emma said, you know, how can we help our children manage the uncertainty of the fact that there could be another lockdown? All right, there could be several further lockdowns. We don't know. I think the only way to manage that is just to be honest with them and say, you know, it might happen, we just don't know. But just like we coped and we managed the last one, we will cope and manage with the next one. And I think gratitude ties in very nicely with that. So I think at home, we try to smooth the way for kids. We don't make them food that we know they don't like. We don't buy them clothes that we know they don't want to wear. If they're bored, you know, during lockdown, who else was indulging in massive Amazon orgies of like puzzles and workbooks and this and that? Because, you know, we're just trying to make things as nice as possible for them. But school isn't like that. You know, at school, they have to eat a meal they maybe don't like. They have to wear a scratchy uniform. They have to deal with unfair situations, kids who might be a bit mean, and a host of other small and not so small challenges that they have to learn to manage. And some of our kids are going to find that really hard to manage, I think, at the beginning, at least initially while they get used to it. And something that I think really helps is gratitude, practicing gratitude. So, as I said before, kids are very good at spiraling into very negative cycles. So they'll come back from school and you'll say, you know, how was your day? And they will say, it was awful. Everything was awful. Or you'll say, how was lunch? And they'll say, it was awful. There was nothing I wanted to eat. It's all very dramatic. And for them, they truly feel that. And it's our job to help our kids see what I call the power of the small positive. It's not just me that says that. Lots of research around that as well. The power of the small positive. So the trick is to help your child find 2 or 3 things that they are grateful for, no matter how small. So however you want to do that. You can have a weekly family gratitude circle. You can have a daily time where you sit with your child before bed. They can write it down and fill up a gratitude jar, and then you can see like, wow, I was actually grateful for so much. So many good little things happened to me this week or this month. And I'm talking tiny here, so I'm grateful there was sweet corn today. Even if that was the only thing I ate at lunch, it was something. And these are all real life things that kids have said to me when we've kind of done this work in school. Or I'm grateful my friend sat next to me in maths. It was still like a hideous lesson, but it was nice to know that they were there. Or even at home, I'm grateful my brother offered to set the table for me, even though it was my job today, because he could see that I was really upset about something. Just by unpicking all these tiny but slightly more positive aspects of the day, we're helping our children understand that there are lots of things that we can be grateful for. And we're kind of helping them to start, in a way, taking responsibility for their own mental health and their own well-being, by understanding that, to some extent, it's up to us to try and find these little positive messages in our day. And I think when we're thinking about future lockdown, it's going to be the same kind of thing. So yes, we're all a bit worried about another lockdown, but right now, what can we be happy about? What actually happened today that we can think, okay, this big scary thing might be coming, But I'm still glad that today, you know, whatever, we had ice cream for dessert. I don't know, whatever it's going to be. I saw grandma. Think small, small positives. Um, Having worked with kids for years and doing this kind of work with them, it's very powerful. It really works very nicely. And I think making it a family event is very, very special as well. Um, you know, it can be nice to, you know, on Friday night, everyone just goes around and says something that they're grateful for. It really can kind of become a very powerful tool in your armory. Okay, I'm going to finish. There's a very nice segue there to ritual. Okay, so I really thought about rituals for the first time kind of mindfully in lockdown. And at the very beginning of lockdown, when the schools had just closed and I was kind of facing that prospect of homeschooling, I had 3 kids I was going to be homeschooling and had a baby at home, and my husband was working, and we were just like, how is this going to be workable? And it was chaotic and it was uncertain and it was really, really scary. And for me, the way I deal to situations like that is I just order. So I just made like loads of visual timetables and I planned out every single second of the day. And I, you know, I was like WhatsApping everyone going, you know, when are you doing maths? Are you doing it every day? You're doing it 3 times a week? Like, how should we order it all? And but somehow within that, we came up with this idea in our family every day to take afternoon tea. I know it sounds a bit ridiculous and terribly English, but on my carefully scheduled visual routine timetable at 3 o'clock every day, there was like a 20-minute segment for afternoon tea, and we all sat at the kitchen table, and I taught my 8-year-old to make a very fine cup of tea, which gave him a lot of responsibility and actually is something that even now he feels really proud that he was able to do. And we would eat, you know, all the cakes and biscuits that we were all baking every day during lockdown. And it was really lovely. It just gave everybody a time to just breathe for a minute after the kind of madness of the morning and lunch bit and before the coming madness of like afternoon dinner, bath, bed kind of stuff going on. And it became a fixture in the day, and we actually started calling it ritual afternoon tea. I don't know who came up with that, but that's what we now call it. And that was when I started to think about ritual and their importance in family life. And the truth of the matter is, probably everyone here now has their own family rituals, whether or not they are mindful of the fact that they are actually ritual. If you're engaged in Judaism, obviously that provides you with instant access to ritual because it's full of ritual. We've got our Friday night dinner, we've got our Shabbat morning going to shul, or now we can't go to shul, but maybe we daven together, or maybe we have a sing-along together, but whatever it is, you know, it's those chunks of time that we actively create where we just simply celebrate parenthood and the joys of our kids. We don't have to parent at those times. We can just be parents. And lockdown really showed me the benefit of doing that regularly, and being mindful of doing it as well. And I think the challenge now actually is how am I going to take that into term time when things are so busy? And for all of us to think, you know, how are we going to hang on to those things that we've loved about lockdown, and there have been a few things for everybody. How are we going to hang on to that as we move into term time? So I just want to share 3 rituals that I thought were very cute that I asked friends. So a friend of mine in Israel said that on Tuesday mornings they take their kids for hot chocolate and rolls in a little cafe before school starts, and it's very early and very hectic, and she has 4 kids, so I don't know how she's doing that, but she said they wouldn't miss it because they love it. It's fun. It's just like a fun, happy thing to do in the week. Friday night dinner, we all go around the table and share a rose and a thorn. Rose and a thorn, I think, is Michelle Obama's thing. So you share a rose, a happy thing, and a thorn, a hard thing from the week. Birthday breakfast, that's my family thing. Non-negotiable family ritual. No matter what day of the week, no matter what the time, 6:30 a.m., so be it. Everyone gathers around for birthday feast, cards, and presents. So however ritual in your family looks like, those are the times to grab onto, because those are the times that are where you get to have joy with your family. they're the bit where you get to, I guess, sanctify your household. It sounds a bit kind of, pious, but that's what it is. And for our kids, that time is priceless because it's taking out, it's allowing them time to just be. We have to worry about the anxiety around school or all the routine or all the responsibility stuff, the stuff that's really important and vital to everyday life, and it's necessary and we need it, but we need to balance it with these periods in our week where we can just have fun together and just be together, however that's going to look like for your family. And that is basically me in a nutshell. So questions, I guess. I don't know if anyone has any. I'm aware that I've like chucked information at you really quickly, which I would never normally do if I was doing this with staff or whatever. But yeah. Don't know if anyone wants to share something. Has anyone got a ritual they want to share? That'd be nice to hear about. Who would like to share a ritual? I can see several families here who I am absolutely sure engage in family ritual. Lisa, I'm looking at you right now. No? You might not have anything you want to share, and that's fine too. I do have a final slide. Oh, Emma's typing. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Yeah, maybe just show the last slide. No, the next one. Yeah, there you go. Helpful resources, just in case people want anything. Every Shabbat dinner we ask, oh, okay, how gorgeous. So I can see already that some people already do a gratitude circle. And that's a ritual. That's a Friday night ritual, and that's beautiful. And you should hang on to that and treasure that because that's really special.
I'll tell you a ritual that we do.
Thanks, Lisa.
On Friday night, after we bless the kids, David whispers into each one's ear like something really nice about the week, and then I do the same thing as well. So it's like a little secret, like, yes, it's also nice to praise them in public, but it's also nice to have like a really private thing. And then sometimes David and I both say the same thing, and the kids are like, wow, you said the same thing, it must have been really great. And it's a really nice thing to do.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa, because it's just gorgeous. And that's something your kids, they'll remember that forever.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing they'll do with their own children because it would have been so special for them. No matter all the nonsense of the week, you just let it go at that moment and you're just with your child.
Yeah. Sometimes it's over lockdown, it was hard to actually think of something positive, but we did.
You did. Yeah, I've actually just got a really good one here. I used to from my brother. Dad took us to buy crisps every Thursday. That's where you love them. And it's true, he did. Every week he would collect us from school and we would go and get crisps. I forgot about that. That was an absolutely sacrosanct family ritual. It was wonderful and we loved it. Okay, so just to finish, I just want to quickly buzz through a couple of resources. Some are small, some are big. So Big Life Journal, I don't know if anyone's heard of it. It's a fantastic website. Can see Suzanne nodding there, amazing. It's a great website. You have to sign up to it. I think you pay something. It's totally worth it. They have amazing resources that you can download. They have a fantastic podcast actually for kids. They have an age range of I think like 5 to 18. So you just get the stuff that's appropriate for your children. And it's well worth a look in terms of stuff for mental health and well-being. It's really, really lovely. They have a beautiful family tree activity that I thought was very special, and loads of other stuff as well. Right, and then the book is The Blessing of the Skin Knee by Wendy Mogul. I highly recommend this book. I literally can't recommend it enough. You should immediately Amazon it to your house. If you have secondary school age children, she has another one called Blessings of a B-, also outstanding. It is quite sort of Jewishy because she basically found God and is very into the fact that Torah has all the answers already, which is fine for me because I kind of agree with that too. But whether or not you agree with that, her advice for parents is second to none. She is also a very, very fancy child psychologist in Beverly Hills, and has been for many, many years. So she knows what she's talking about. So I really recommend that. School, obviously, if you're worried about your child, significantly worried, you've given it a couple of weeks, things are really not going well, just go and see school, or Zoom it, I suppose, these days. Start with your class teacher. They're your first port of call. And if they can't help you, or they are also concerned, then you'll probably get to, the equivalent of me, the inclusion leader, at some point, and that's fine. That's our job. We're here to help parents. You don't necessarily have to have a child with additional need. To be quite honest, if you have a child who's struggling in school, they have an additional need at that moment. So, and we need to sort that out. So we would always rather know. Moving kind of way up the spectrum, and hopefully you will never need to know any of these resources, but just in case you do, Norwood have a very good free confidential parenting helpline called PATH, Parent Advisory Telephone Hotline, I think it is. If you look on their website, you'll see it. It's still running even with lockdown. You call up, you leave a message, and somebody calls you back. They have volunteers on the hotline who will call you back and talk you through your issue, whatever it is, and if necessary, they'll signpost you on for more help. And they'll take any problem, no matter how big or small. And then obviously, finally, and hopefully no one ever needs to use this, but it's there, CAMHS. So CAMHS is the bit of the NHS that deals with everything that is kind of mental health and wellbeing related. And that ranges from kind of anxiety around a specific issue all the way up to really bad kind of needing institution sort of support, and everything in the middle. They're notoriously hard to get hold of and to get into the service, but once you're in the service, they are actually very good, and you can get there via your GP or via your school, and they're good for things like sleep disorders that you literally just can't work out, or eating issues, or significant changes in your child's behaviour that you've noticed. But hopefully no one needs that, but I just kind of thought it would be helpful for me to kind of signpost you to that.
Rachel, just to mention,
yes.
For anybody who's got their kids at Ramon, there is a plan. I don't know the exact timing, but basically every parent will have communication with their child's school teacher, I think 2 weeks in, so they will have a meeting with their school teacher, I assume presumably on Zoom, where they will get to say how their kid's adjusting, anything that's been happening during lockdown, and I think there'll be a questionnaire as well that will go with that, so that basically it's a handover from the parent to school.
Okay, amazing. That's such a good idea. I'm really happy for that, because I think a lot of it for everyone is just going to be about having that communication and just keeping those lines open, so that we just kind of feel someone is hearing us, and someone is kind of, on the lookout for our child. And that's it really from me. Thanks so much for coming, everyone. I really hope it was helpful. I've recorded it because lots of people messaged me saying they couldn't come, but could I record it? So I guess it will be on I don't know, Joel does that, a YouTube link or whatever, something technical. He'll no doubt will be in touch to tell you about that. And yeah, hopefully it was helpful. And I look forward to seeing you all in the playground. Woo! On Thursday. Can't wait. Lovely. Okay. I'm gonna say goodbye then. Thanks so much. Bye everyone. Yes.